Have you ever wondered what it really means to be an alpha male in the modern world? I'm not just talking about strength or appearance, but about that unstoppable blend of confidence, power, control, and charisma that makes everyone's eyes turn when they walk into the room. Today, I'm going to take you on an epic duel between two icons of that archetype. Harvey Specter, the most brilliant and sophisticated lawyer in Suits, and James Bond, cinema's most audacious and legendary secret agent. Who best represents this alpha male ideal? We'll find out through 5 fundamental keys that define leadership, seduction, emotional control, presence, and independence. Get ready to see not only who wins, but to discover what traits you can apply yourself to boost your own confidence and leadership. Because behind every story of power, there's a secret that few dare to tell. And today, you're going to learn that secret. We begin with Harvey Specter, the man who dominates every room he enters. He doesn't need to raise his voice or explain why he's in charge, because his mere presence communicates it. From the first episode of Suits, we see how he commands respect with his body language. Straight back, firm shoulders, direct gaze, and a confident half smile that never wavers. In one of the most iconic scenes, when he interviews Mike Ross, Harvey isn't fazed when he discovers Mike isn't a licensed attorney. Instead of being alarmed, he maintains complete control of the conversation, turning the situation in his favor and demonstrating that he has the power to decide what is legally questionable and what isn't. That's the essence of the alpha male, calm dominance. Another example is when he confronts Jessica Pearson or Louis Litt in internal meetings. Harvey never hesitates, doesn't over-explain, and rarely justifies himself. His tone is firm, his speech clear, and above all, concise. He doesn't say more than necessary because he knows that those in power don't need to convince anyone. Just declare. This generates automatic authority. When he speaks, everyone listens. In practice, applying this confidence and presence in real life starts with preparation. Harvey is always one step ahead because he prepares more than anyone. When you know what you're doing, you exude confidence. Furthermore, his personal style is carefully curated. He wears perfectly tailored suits, understated ties, and colors that convey power, like charcoal gray or dark blue. In everyday life, this translates into taking care of your image, from your body posture to your verbal language. Speak slowly, look people in the eye, don't fill the silence out of anxiety, and don't ask for approval with phrases like, "Do I explain myself?" or "Is this okay?" Another key to his presence is his calm under pressure. On Suits, when all seems lost in a case, Harvey maintains his composure. He doesn't shout, he doesn't collapse, he just thinks. This creates a magnetic effect. People trust more those who remain calm in the midst of chaos. In your life, you can practice this by facing stress with emotional control. Breathe, lower your voice when others raise it, and show that nothing throws you off center. Quiet leadership, like Harvey's, is more powerful than any grandiloquent speech. Harvey Specter masters emotional control as a tool of power. In Suits, even in critical moments, such as when he faces the possibility of losing his license, when his brother reappears with problems, or when Donna confronts him emotionally, Harvey never explodes or breaks down in front of others. He doesn't show anxiety, doesn't lose his temper, and rarely raises his voice. This restraint isn't weakness, but a strategy. By not showing his emotional cards, he makes that whoever masters their emotions masters the negotiation. Harvey Specter dominates every space he enters, not through physical strength or loudness, but because he understands the rules of the game better than anyone. Throughout the series, we constantly see him enter meetings where everyone is against him and emerge with the advantage. A clear example is when he confronts Louis Litt or hostile clients in the conference room. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't lose his temper. Instead, he asks pointed questions, brings evidence no one expected, or throws out phrases like, "I don't play the odds, I make them," and immediately turns the mood in his favor. Harvey never improvises haphazardly. He studies his opponents. He knows their fears, their body language, and their weaknesses. On one occasion, when Jessica Pearson is about to relinquish control of the firm, Harvey doesn't argue directly, but instead gathers the key people, quietly makes his legal moves, and then presents a win-win solution, but he retains the power. That kind of dominance isn't noise, it's pure tactics. Another brutal example of his control is his command of language. He always has the last word because he knows how to use pauses, metaphors, and cultural references to his advantage. It's not just what he says, it's how he says it. Once, while negotiating with a difficult client, instead of pleading or fighting, he calmly said, "If you want common results, call a common lawyer. If you want to win, you know where to find me." He leaves him speechless. Applied to real life, this means that if you want to dominate a situation like Harvey, you can't just wing it without preparation. You must know your audience, control your body language, and never enter a meeting without having a plan A, a plan B, and a plan for when everything else fails. Learn to pause before speaking, observe others' reactions, and use their own words against them if necessary. Never be reactive. He who dominates the environment dominates the narrative, and Harvey Specter always tells his side of the story first. Harvey Specter doesn't need to chase anyone. He attracts. His charisma is based on a lethal mix of confidence, impeccable body language, sharp intelligence, and a touch of controlled arrogance. In Suits, we constantly see him surrounded by respect, desire, and attention, both professionally and personally. A clear example is his relationship with Dana Scott, known as Scotty. She is a brilliant, strong woman, a top-flight lawyer, and yet she returns to Harvey more than once. Why? Because he projects confidence. He knows exactly who he is and what he wants. He doesn't grovel, he doesn't beg, but he's not cold either. He plays with a perfect blend of interest and distance that proves addictive. Another iconic moment is his dynamic with Donna. Donna is the only one who can challenge him emotionally, and that balances him out. But even so, Harvey maintains a position of emotional power. He doesn't let himself be swayed by impulses or insecurities. When he has to make difficult decisions, he does so based on logic, not a need to please. This ability to set boundaries without losing his magnetism is key to his charisma. In practice, if you want to apply Harvey Specter's seduction and charisma to your life, start by working on your body language. Keep your back straight, your gaze direct, and your tone of voice firm and measured. He speaks less, but with more intention. Every word Harvey says seems thoughtful. He doesn't rush or babble. Second, don't seek approval. Harvey walks into any room as if he's already the boss, and that energy is contagious. People respond to self-perception. If you act as if you deserve respect, you'll most likely receive it. Third, he blends intelligence with dry humor and elegant irony. Harvey delivers punchy one-liners without even raising his voice. For example, when someone tries to challenge him, he responds with a line like, "Whenever I want your opinion, I'll give it to you." This type of humor demonstrates superiority without physical aggression. It's mental seduction. Fourth, be emotionally unpredictable. This doesn't mean being cruel, but rather not being predictable. Harvey never shows despair. If he loses an argument or a case, he comes back with a better strategy. If someone rejects him, he doesn't give up. He picks himself up and wins on another front. That makes him addictive. People want to know what he'll do next. Finally, remember that Harvey's charisma comes from absolute control, not just of his surroundings, but of himself. He takes care of his appearance, his reputation, his language, and his relationships. He doesn't zone out. He doesn't complain. He doesn't justify himself. If you make a mistake, don't make excuses. Own up to it with your head held high. That's the true foundation of charisma. This is how Harvey Specter seduces, without having to search, because everything about him communicates that he already has it all. That's the real attraction. Harvey Specter represents leadership from a position of absolute trust and autonomy, where his influence is not based on authoritarian imposition, but on the respect earned through his ability to make difficult decisions and hold himself accountable for them. Throughout Suits, it is shown time and again that Harvey leads from the top, not because he demands obedience, but because his experience and results naturally place him there. His style is calm, confident, and strategic, which causes those around him to follow him without question. For example, when defending Mike Ross in high-stakes legal situations, Harvey doesn't seek outside support or attempt to delegate responsibility. He assumes the full weight of the case with unwavering confidence. This demonstrates that her independence is not only personal, but also a pillar on which her entire leadership is based, projecting the image of someone who can handle any storm without losing composure or direction. Regarding his emotional autonomy, Harvey consciously maintains a distance between his personal ties and his professional life, which allows him to be an effective leader without being weakened by his feelings. Although he has deep and meaningful relationships, especially with Donna Paulson, his confidant and right-hand woman, he maintains the necessary objectivity to avoid mixing emotions with strategic decisions. Throughout the series, we see him cope with personal losses and traumas, such as the death of his mentor Jessica Pearson or family conflicts, but he never allows these circumstances to affect his performance or his authority. This emotional independence is key to maintaining his alpha male image because it allows him to remain steadfast and focused, without his personal vulnerability translating into professional weakness. Another crucial aspect of his leadership is his total acceptance of responsibility. Harvey isn't someone who makes excuses or tries to blame others when things go wrong. On the contrary, he assumes the consequences of his decisions with integrity and courage. In Season 6, for example, when he decides to defend Mike in a complicated trial, he exposes himself to enormous legal and professional risks, but he never backs down or hesitates. This willingness to bear the weight of his actions without seeking to justify himself is what defines an alpha leader who not only commands, but also answers for his actions and protects those who trust him. Despite his apparent toughness, Harvey also protects his team with fierce loyalty, yet without becoming emotionally dependent on them, maintaining a balance between closeness and autonomy that reinforces his position of strength. His relationship with Donna is emblematic in this regard. Although he deeply values and protects her, it doesn't become a dependency, emotional that can weaken it, but both encourage each other to grow and be independent within the professional and personal relationship. Finally, his leadership is eminently strategic and controlled. Harvey doesn't act on impulse or get carried away by emotions, but always carefully plans every move and anticipates the possible reactions of his adversaries. This ability to lead intelligently, remaining calm in high-pressure situations, makes him a leader who is not only confident, but also capable of guiding his team through complex crises without losing control. A clear example is the war between law firms in Season 4, where Harvey becomes the mastermind who designs each play with precision, demonstrating that his independence also translates into a superior intellectual capacity to dominate the environment without depending on anyone else. In short, Harvey Specter embodies the independence and leadership of the alpha male, as someone who stands firmly at the top, responsible and protective, but at the same time emotionally self-sufficient, showing that true strength lies not only in commanding, but in fully assuming the consequences and always maintaining integrity and self-confidence. On the other hand, James Bond is the epitome of confidence and commanding presence, characteristics that make him an iconic and memorable alpha male. From the moment he enters the scene, Bond does not go unnoticed. His confidence does not come solely from his impeccable physical appearance or his perfectly cut suits, but from a confidence that springs from having faced and overcome the most extreme and dangerous situations. This confidence is visceral and palpable. It is that of someone who knows that his training, experience, and courage allow him to control any environment or circumstance he finds himself in. For example, when Bond arrives at a casino or a social event, his presence is felt not only by how he dresses or walks, but because he radiates an irresistible mix of charisma, danger, and dominance. He orders his iconic martini, shaken, not sophisticated environments, and high-risk situations. This physical and emotional presence is the result of a unique combination of intense training, quick wit, and fearless courage. Bond doesn't just rely on his fighting or shooting prowess. He relies on his ability to read people, anticipate moves, and control the atmosphere around him. In essence, his confidence is the outward manifestation of absolute inner dominance, and it is this dominance that makes him an alpha male both legendary and feared. James Bond is known for his apparent coolness and imperturbable composure, essential qualities for a secret agent constantly faced with life or death situations. However, beneath that cold and calculating facade, Bond possesses a much deeper and more complex emotional control. Unlike a leader who simply represses his emotions, Bond processes them and uses them strategically to maintain his effectiveness. In films like Casino Royale and Skyfall, we see a more human and vulnerable side of the character, showing how personal loss and trauma affect his inner self, yet without allowing it to paralyze him or weaken him. For example, the tragic death of Vesper Lind in Casino Royale leaves an emotional scar that influences his later relationships. But Bond channels that pain to strengthen his resolve and focus on the mission, preventing his emotions from becoming a weak point exploitable by his enemies.
This ability to recognize and control his feelings without letting them dominate him is a clear example of advanced emotional intelligence, something fundamental for a modern alpha male. Bond is not an emotionless robot, but a man who has learned to manage the balance between vulnerability and strength. Instead of hiding or denying his humanity, he integrates it into his behavior, which makes him more empathetic and authentic. This not only strengthens his resilience, but also generates a special charisma, because those around him perceive that mix of toughness and sensitivity that makes him real and approachable. Finally, this mastery of his emotions allows him to make quick and effective decisions, even in moments of high pressure, always maintaining a cool head and the precision necessary to survive and succeed in his dangerous world. James Bond is an undisputed master of environmental dominance, not because he physically owns the place, but because he possesses the unique ability to turn any setting into his territory, thanks to his ingenuity, training, and courage. Unlike characters who control space through authority or formal power, Bond imposes his presence and effectiveness through constant adaptation and the ability to improvise under pressure. His command of the environment is dynamic and versatile. He can move from an elegant high society party to a high-speed chase or a gun battle in a matter of minutes, and he always knows how to take advantage of every situation. A classic example is the car chase in Casino Royale, where Bond demonstrates his ability to read the terrain, anticipate moves, and maneuver with extreme precision, transforming a chaotic and dangerous environment into a controlled space. His technical knowledge and impeccable reflexes not only allow him to survive, but also turn the situation around to attack his enemies from a position of advantage. Another practical example is found in Skyfall, during the final scene at Bond's family mansion, where he transforms seemingly adverse terrain into a battlefield in his favor, using both the physical and psychological environment to test his enemy and ensure victory. In these moments, Bond demonstrates that his mastery depends not only on physical strength, but on his ability to analyze, adapt, and strategically use everything at his disposal. Furthermore, Bond is able to dominate social and political contexts with equal effectiveness. In diplomatic or negotiation situations, his charisma, body language, and quick reading of the interlocutor allow him to take control of the conversation without the need for explicit authority. An example would be in Goldfinger, where Bond uses his intelligence and charm to disarm powerful adversaries in a hostile environment, manipulating the situation to his advantage with a blend of cunning and confidence. Thus, Bond dominates the environment in all its forms, physical, social, and emotional, making his power complete and adaptable, reinforcing his image as an alpha male capable of prevailing in any circumstance, no matter how adverse. James Bond is, without a doubt, one of the greatest exponents of charisma and seduction within the cultural imagination, and his way of attracting and conquering goes far beyond mere physical appearance. His charisma is an irresistible blend of confidence, mystery, danger, and sophistication, attributes that make him a man who not only commands attention, but also provokes fascination and desire. Bond doesn't need to make an effort to be the center of attention. His very presence generates an appealing tension, an aura of adventure and risk that is tremendously seductive. In this sense, Bond represents the ideal of the alpha male who knows how to naturally attract, combining his command of the situation with an almost hypnotic charm. A clear example of this combination can be seen in Casino Royale,
where Bond not only wins over Vesper Lynd with his style and confidence, but also with the vulnerability he reveals in a subtle and authentic way. His seduction here is not only physical, but emotional, which adds depth to his character and makes him more attractive because he seems real, imperfect, and human. In contrast, in films like Goldfinger and Thunderball, Bond uses his charisma in a more classic way. A confident, bold, and direct man, capable of disarming with a smile or a witty comment. His ability to manipulate body language, voice, and gaze allows him to establish quick and effective connections, making the women around him feel intrigued and attracted by this balance between confidence and danger. Furthermore, Bond's seduction is marked by an element of risk and adventure not found in any other alpha male. He not only represents stability or power, but also the forbidden and exciting, which gives his charisma a special magnetism. For example, his relationship with Pussy Galore in Goldfinger or with Honey Rider in Dr. No clearly reflects this explosive mix of danger and desire. Bond seduces not only with words or gestures, but with the implicit promise of a life full of adrenaline, mystery, and constant challenges. Ultimately, his seduction and charisma are a powerful and natural tool that he masterfully uses to attract and dominate, consolidating his status as a legendary alpha male, capable of conquering both personally and socially. James Bond personifies absolute independence and solitary leadership, fundamental characteristics of the alpha male archetype, who not only excels but also acts independently. Although he works for MI6 and relies to some extent on the support of figures such as M, Q, and Moneypenny, in the field of action, he is the one who calls the shots, making crucial decisions and assuming enormous responsibilities without seeking the approval or constant collaboration of others. This independence is not simply a matter of pride or ego. It is a practical necessity in a job where speed and autonomy can mean the difference between life and death. Bond leads his own missions, defines his own path, and takes full responsibility for the results, making him a natural leader, but one who prefers solitude and self-governance in the field. A clear example of this independence is seen in Skyfall, where Bond returns to active duty and, despite orders, often acts on his own initiative, facing dangers and taking risks that others would not dare to take. His ability to operate alone, even when seemingly outnumbered or tactically challenged, demonstrates absolute confidence in his judgment and abilities. Another example is in Casino Royale, where Bond embarks on a mission requiring a blend of intelligence, brawn, tactical action, and cunning, with minimal instructions and no close backup team, fully trusting in his ability to control the situation. This absolute autonomy reflects a leadership based on self-efficacy and personal responsibility, which distinguishes him from other characters who rely more on teamwork or hierarchical command. Furthermore, Bond's leadership style is also one of example. He doesn't just give orders or fulfill his role, but rather takes personal risks, faces danger on the front lines, and demonstrates his commitment and courage with actions. This inspires respect and trust, even in those who work behind the scenes or provide him with technical support. His independence sometimes borders on self-destruction, which adds a heroic and a complex dimension to his figure. An alpha male unafraid to bear the weight of his mission alone, willing to sacrifice everything to fulfill his duty. Thus, Bond embodies the idea of a leader who is, above all, a capable, self-sufficient individual with a strong sense of duty, cementing his place as one of the most solid and admired alpha male archetypes in popular culture. Harvey Specter and James Bond represent two distinct types of alpha males who complement each other in several key ways. In terms of confidence and presence, Harvey commands a stylish and controlled self-confidence, commanding a room without raising his voice, while Bond exudes a physical, adventurous confidence that comes from his experience in extreme situations. In emotional control, Harvey is an impenetrable wall, hiding any vulnerability to avoid revealing weakness, while Bond, though strong, allows his emotions to surface at key moments, displaying a humanity that makes him more empathetic. In environmental control, Harvey wields his power with intelligence and strategy in his professional field, controlling without the need for violence, while Bond,
dominates a wide variety of environments with action, speed, and adaptability, asserting himself through ingenuity and courage. In seduction and charisma, Harvey attracts with elegance, power, and stability, using his intelligence and confidence as weapons. In contrast to Bond, who seduces with a dangerous and adventurous charisma, combining mystery and risk that prove irresistible. Finally, in independence and leadership, Harvey leads from the top of a team, protecting and making decisions with authority, but also with a certain emotional attachment, while Bond is the quintessential solitary leader, self-sufficient and autonomous, operating without seeking approval and taking extreme risks alone. In short, Harvey is the sophisticated, cerebral, and disciplined alpha male, while Bond is the adventurous, physical, and passionate one, each dominating their terrain with distinct but equally powerful styles. In the end, Harvey Specter and James Bond show us that being an alpha male isn't a single, simple path, but rather a complex combination of mind and body, strategy and action, control and passion. Each teaches us that true power comes from the balance of inner confidence and the ability to command the world around us, whether with grace or courage. The question isn't just who the ultimate alpha male is, but what you can learn from each to be the best version of yourself, leading with strength, authenticity, and purpose. Because at the end of the day, the greatest alpha you can be is the one who controls his life and destiny with complete conviction.